I'm Erin. Welcome back to Wine Myths Uncorked. Now today we are tackling a question or a query that we often get in the tasting room. People's mentioned that they are afraid to open up a bottle of wine if they just want to enjoy one glass. Now, I don't necessarily have that problem because me and my husband, we can finish a bottle a night, no problem. But for those people who do just want to enjoy a glass, when you open a bottle of wine, does it have to be enjoyed that day? So we brought in assistant winemaker Abby Stamp to walk us through a couple of different types of wine and to talk about how long they can keep their flavor integrity. So Abby.
Hi, welcome to Wine Myths Uncorked. So what we have here is 3 different classes of wine that we're going to test this on. We opened a bottle yesterday of each wine, and then we opened one fresh today, and we're going to compare a glass from each bottle. The one that sat open overnight or the one that was just freshly opened.
Right.
So we're going to start with a bubbly. It's our bubbly Candeo. This is a forced carbonated product. So you can imagine things that are carbonated, you worry about losing some of that CO2 if you open it and don't finish it. So we have a glass from yesterday and from today, and we're going to taste those and see how it held up. There was one glass removed yesterday, so there's about this much headspace in the bottle.
That's right. So we took exactly 6 ounces out of each bottle. And sparkling, that's the one that I feel like is the most likely to be consumed in one day, right? Like that's the one I worry about the most.
So the one from the previously opened bottle, still lots of carbonation, kind of gets a nice mousse going on your mouth, and of course the flavors are super fresh and clean still.
Great. So there you go. And then today's,
I would say it has maybe a hair more carbonation, but I would absolutely still drink it after it was open for a day. That being said, with 6 ounces gone, you still don't have a whole lot of headspace in the bottle. If you only leave maybe a glass left in that bottle and put it in your fridge, it's not going to hold the carbonation quite as well because you've got more headspace for that CO2 to leave the wine.
that makes sense.
I would say with a Candeo, probably if it's open and you have more than half a bottle left, you could get away with 2 to 3 days in the fridge. Keep it cold because CO2 stays dissolved in the wine better at cooler temperatures. So that's one. If you open it, you don't finish it, put it back in the fridge, screw that lid back on, and you're good for a few days.
Awesome.
Next up is our classic Riesling here. This is our current release, the 2018 vintage. Our Rieslings here are really built to last. So if it's a current release, you can typically get away with probably up to like a week, I'm guessing, but let's do a little test here. This is the one from last night.
And all of these wines were quality tested yesterday. They were all very sound and delicious. So
Thanks for doing that for us.
Absolutely, no problem.
That's very, very fresh, and I think it could go for days longer. It's yeah, you can't tell that it has been open overnight. It's fruitier in this nose than the one that was freshly opened. So sometimes with really young wines like this, you're better off opening it and a little bit ahead of time because some of that oxygen gets in and it helps volatilize those aromas. So you can actually get more out of a glass that's been opened for a little bit versus a freshly opened bottle because they are such young wines. Yeah, I think
does
that
have to do with sweetness level at all, or is it just Rieslings across the board?
Well, just not Rieslings across the board, but our Rieslings,
Okay.
I would say. The way we produce them, we want somebody to be able to open a bottle of our Riesling in 5-6 years and not have it be over the hill. We want it to be still tasting fresh and fruit driven. So it's not a lot of oxygen in here. It's bottled less than a year ago, so really it's going to hold up for probably up to a week, I would say, with our semi-Riesling, and I think that could be applied to our other Rieslings as well. And then our 2018 Cabernet Franc. So this one is a wine that maybe you're more familiar with opening ahead of time. People often do that with reds, or they'll say they want to let it breathe, and sometimes that does benefit the wine. It can be a little bit closed up at first when you open it, so we'll see how this did overnight. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh yeah, there was just so much fruit yesterday when we were enjoying it. It's a really beautiful Cab Franc.
I can say with confidence, if you have a glass of Cab Franc and you want to enjoy it the next day, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah.
Let's see how the fresh ones. It's interesting, you should smell here the different aromas in the one night one versus the freshly opened bottle.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's super fruity. This one's got some of that fruit, but it really hasn't had as much time to breathe.
You're right. We literally just opened this bottle.
Right, and that's kind of like almost a little doughy, and
yes.
And then this is
Oh,
really fruity,
so
cherry.
interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say, especially with our current releases, these wines are so fresh, and I think opening them and not finishing it isn't going to hurt. In fact, it might even help the wine if you have it the next day. That being said, I understand if you don't save any for the next day.
I got a ringer. For you, Abby.
All right.
It was really well hidden behind everything. It's a library wine. So how do we treat library wines?
Okay, so what do we have? A 2012 Pinot Gris from Lakewood Vineyards.
Yes.
Their old label on it there. Library wines are not the same. So you'll see, typically our releases are from, the grapes were picked maybe a year and a half before you're purchasing the wine. So they have not been in the bottle long, typically less than a year. Library wines, they've had more time to age, and with that cork in there, very slowly oxygen can get into the bottle. And basically, on a very small scale, do what being open overnight does.
Okay.
So it has already aged, it's done that. So when you open a library wine, I would recommend drinking that same evening, because it doesn't have the longevity once you let all that oxygen in that you'll get with the younger wines. So especially like a Pinot Gris, if you have any of these in your cellar, I would, have a friend around to help you finish it that night. It'd be interesting to try it the next day. I don't think it would be bad, but it would likely not be as aromatic and fruit driven and as balanced as it was when you first opened it.
Excellent. Well, this has definitely given me some food or wine for thought. Super excited to hear this. So what also is nice is if you're having a multi-course dinner, you don't need to feel like you can only open one bottle per course. You can open up a variety of wines and they're still going to be delicious the next day.
Absolutely. If you want to continue believing that you have to drink it the night you open it, if that's your excuse, feel free. I'm not saying to only drink a glass,
Heard it from Abby.
You don't have to dump it out if you don't finish it that night.
Excellent. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Abby.